Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Industry Insights today with KPMG. My name is Christine Russell, and I'm an Associate Director at the Center for Career and Professional Development, and I'm the liaison to all the undergraduate College of Business students.
My name is Allie Irk, and I am the Associate Director for Graduate Student Career Development. And we're very excited to have our special guest here today, Aubrey Baier. Welcome, Aubrey.
Thanks, Allie. Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
So we wanted to start by just hearing a little bit more about you and about your background. If you could tell us a little bit more about your role and your background.
Yeah, sure. So thank you all for joining. First, I just want to give kudos to everyone for doing something school related on a sunny summer day in June. Definitely shows that you are excited about your futures and definitely investing in your own development. So shout out to you guys for showing up. But I am Aubrey. I am the Senior Associate Recruiting Lead for KPMG at Lehigh and Rutgers University. I went to Rutgers and graduated in 2016, and I've been in HR and recruiting for the past just about 4 years, which is wild. I joined KPMG about 2 years ago, and I sit in our New Jersey office in Short Hill. So I lead all recruiting efforts for both schools, as well as general recruiting just for our New Jersey office primarily.
Great, thank you so much. What are some tips that you think would be helpful for students when they're thinking about networking with recruiters and alumni?
Yes, so I would say in terms of tips, be yourself. So authenticity always wins, especially when it comes to trying to find a job that you're going to be happy and long-term. If you're a different person in the interview process than you are when you show up on day one, it's not going to benefit you or your employer. So I think be authentic in the way that you try and make connections, and ask really, I think, genuine questions. So when you're going to a networking event, think about the WIFM. If you guys have heard me present before, it's a KPMG term that they taught me, and maybe other people know it, but WIFM is what's in it for me. So always go into an event with, what am I trying to get out of this? Not just checking a box and saying like, oh, I went to that networking event, but are you trying to make a certain number of contacts? Are you trying to connect with a certain person? Really think about what exactly are you trying to do, and then think of how you're going to do that. So if you have a certain person you want to chat with, maybe do a little bit of research on them and think about their background and how you might have something in common, or there might be something really interesting in their background that you want to learn more about. So think about the questions that you're going to ask beforehand, what you want to actually accomplish during that event, while being yourself and being comfortable and, relaxing, because it's just a networking event. Networking is supposed to be fun. But also like ask people about themselves. I think that's my biggest piece of advice. People love talking about themselves. I'm guilty of it as well, but especially professionals who have had long and successful careers, they want to mentor students. They want to mentor especially students who go to the same college that they did. So ask about them, because not only will they be excited to share their experience and feel like they're helping you, but it will also strengthen the relationship that you have with them. So the more personal conversations you have, the more that you learn about them, the more that they're going to remember your face and your name, and want to continue building that relationship with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think those are wonderful tips for students to keep in mind as they're engaging with recruiters. And thinking about in those interactions with recruiters, what are some of the most important skills that recruiters are looking for that maybe students should articulate or highlight?
Yeah, so in terms of skills, I want to touch back on the authenticity just one more time. I think it's so important to be yourself. And that is a skill, being able to come to an event and not be nervous, to the extent that you can actually be yourself, be confident, be comfortable in your own skin, and know your strengths. So go there knowing like, hey, I might not be good at X, Y, and Z, but like A, B, and C, I've got down. So like, that's what I'm going to talk about. So I think knowing your strengths, and also being able to speak to your ability to work in a team. So at least in professional services, and I think in a lot of more modern companies now, everything's done in a team environment. You're going to have tasks that you're completing on your own, but at the end of the day, they're contributing to a larger project. You're kind of like a piece as a part of that project. So demonstrating your ability in your conversations to play multiple roles on a team. It's great that you've been a leader. Maybe you're the captain of your soccer team or the president of the accounting club. But when have you also been just a member of the team? When have you played a different role? When have you been able to step back, take direction, and just contribute? So I think it's really a skill to be able to articulate your teamwork skills genuinely. But I think also adaptability comes with that as well. So I think adaptability is like the #1 skill, just because you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. The work world is a very fast-paced environment. So being able to be adaptable and have a plan A, but my mom always used to say, life's always about how you handle plan B. So I think it's important to think about how are you going to quickly shift gears and make a new plan for how to attack different problems. So I'd say thinking about being authentic, knowing your strengths, demonstrating your ability to work really well on a team, and adaptability. But at the end of the day, in terms of networking, all of those wrap up into your communication skills. So you have to practice going into uncomfortable situations and being able to articulate yourself. If you can't tell, if you have all these great thoughts and all these great experiences, but you're not able to get them across, it's not going to lead you to that successful point of getting that job or getting that internship or even just the interview. So really practice, practicing your elevator pitch, practicing being comfortable talking about yourself. Some of us are better at it than others. I've been a loud person since I was a child, so it's not hard for me. But for other people, like talking in front of groups or talking to strangers, it's a different skill. So definitely don't be afraid to practice and think about what it is that you really need to develop before you go into these situations.
Yeah, so I think that's a great list, and I appreciate that you've really highlighted too that you can practice and develop these skills, which is something that we're always telling students. I appreciate that, and also appreciate that you're highlighting adaptability, which now with all the unprecedented changes certainly is becoming at the forefront often. Thinking about KPMG and also the big four firms, what is the recruiting timeline look like?
Yeah, so I break the timeline up into two populations typically. So we'll talk about internships first. So if you're looking to get an internship with the Big Four, you're one of two groups. So either you're an accounting student or you're not. So obviously a large part of our recruiting has to do with audit and tax practices, which primarily recruit accounting majors. But we also have a very large consulting or advisory practice that will recruit just about anything else. So there's a lot of, we'll talk about those majors, but there's a lot more involved in that. So for accounting majors, you're eligible to do what's called leadership recruiting. And that happens basically a semester before typical recruiting. So junior year internships are all that we offer in the traditional timeline. So junior year, meaning one summer before you're graduating. If you're doing a master's program, it'd be still the summer directly before. So just to put it in kind of simple terms, 2022 graduates would have a 2021 internship and they apply for that in 2020. So everything's kind of a year out. So in terms of timeline, if you are doing a leadership recruiting, which actually just happened this past spring, you would be a 2022 graduate that's doing it in the spring of their sophomore/junior year if you're doing a 5-year program. I know this kind of sounds like science, but you get it down as long as you just back everything up from the day that you're graduating. So leadership recruiting just happened. That's just early internship offers for 2021. And it also comes with an invitation to our leadership program. All of the Big Four do that the same. We just went through that and students are making their decisions on their offers around this time. So they have a few months to decide on an offer, which is definitely unique to being in college and having the time to kind of mull it over and weigh out your options. But the traditional timeline, so aside from leadership recruiting, the traditional timeline is the fall of your junior year or your senior year if you're doing a 5-year program. So in the fall, you'll come back to school. So I'll be heading back in just about 2 months. And in late August, we post all of our job postings on Handshake. So you'll log on to Handshake. You'll see quite a number of roles, so it's a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot going on, but you'll kind of figure out where you fit into that. So based on your major, you're eligible for certain internships. Based on your graduation date, you're eligible. So definitely read the job descriptions, but at least for KPMG, you're eligible to apply for one job, which means you have the month of September to narrow down what you're actually interested in and what you want to focus all your efforts on in terms of your application process and interview process. So Late August, the jobs are posted. Early September, we're back on campus. Typically in person, I'm doing info sessions and networking tables and stalking everyone in Roush. But I think that will look a little bit different this fall. So we're probably going to be doing more like virtual info sessions and Zoom, Zoom coffee chats. I was going to say happy hours. I'm so used to that right now, but Zoom coffee chats. So attending those is definitely a big part of that. And again, go back to the WIFM. What are you trying to get out of these virtual events? What are you looking for? Those will happen in the first few weeks of September, including the career fair, which is definitely, I would say, the biggest event to kind of meet the most people, get the most information. And it's also kind of like the culminating event, because typically within a week after the career fair, our application deadline happens. So it typically falls the third or fourth week on a Sunday in September that our application deadline happens. And then within a week, you're notified if you're selected for interviews. So I know that was kind of long-winded, but essentially late August, they're posted. September, you're networking, you're finding out all the information, figuring out what you want to do with your life, at least for your internship. And then you are applying. Once you apply, we let you know if you're selected for interviews or not. If you are selected for interviews, you would complete 2 face-to-face interviews. If they're going to be virtual, it'll be like Skype or Zoom, but 2 30-minute interviews with leaders within the practice. It could be anywhere from a manager up to a partner. And then after that, you typically hear within a week or 2, and then you have a few weeks to decide on your offer. So that's the general fall timeline. That's for interns and full-time. So if you're a junior or a senior in a 5th-year program applying for an internship, that's your timeline. But if you're a senior and it's fall semester and you're like, I don't have a job yet, full-time postings, if we have them, will also be posted on Handshake, and you'll follow that exact same process. So they're posted, you apply, you network, and then you interview in October.
I appreciate you walking through students through that process. That's helpful. Also, when thinking about recruitment, another thing that comes to mind is, what can students do to help their resume really make a lasting impression in terms of that recruitment process?
Yeah, so resumes are tough. I remember making my own resume and just thinking I had to put like super special things on it and have the thickest paper and you know, make it look different and cool. Now, from the other side of the table, being a recruiter, I think we're not looking for anything fancy. I'll say that first, and that's my opinion. Maybe that's just KPMG's opinion, but I don't need colored paper. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be thick. It doesn't have to look different. So I actually find that the more standardized resumes are, the more we can get down to conversation. I don't want to spend the whole day looking at your resume. I want to talk to you. So especially at a career fair, I think the most standard resume format is the best, because I want to easily be able to find the information that I'm looking for. So the resume is where it's like your name's up here, and then there's like a column of things here and a column of things here, and then like a little picture down here. Just so confusing to figure out where I go first. So I think the basic resume format is really, really effective. So having it be clean, having your name, your contact information, straight to your education, because that's what you're doing right now. Even if you have a job, school is your job right now. So I always want to highlight, like, let's make sure you're a Lehigh University student. What's your GPA? That's what we're looking for right off the bat. But also these 2 things I find that we miss a lot on resumes. Students don't write their major. Even if you're not declared, you can write intended major. We just want to know, like, what are you doing there? Because Lehigh University student doesn't tell us much. And then also intended graduation date. So if you're like teetering on doing a master's program or not, you could leave that off. But if you're saying, I'm going to come here for 4 years and then I'm going to do a 1-year master's, have both dates on there. We want to know, like, all companies are concerned with, when are you packing up your bags and leaving college? Because the summer before that is when you're going to do your internship, and or, you know, the fall after that is when you're going to start full time. So be really clear. I think a lot of students put like Lehigh University 2016 to present, and it's like, okay, did you just, are you part-time? Are you full-time? When are you graduating? So think about things like that. Have all of that information there. In terms of standing out, make sure that you list all of your jobs. So I wouldn't go back to elementary school, but as long as you're, you know, a freshman through senior at any point during college, think about anything that you're doing professionally. So it doesn't have to be a great brand name. It doesn't have to be a finance company. Like you could be working at Target. I used to work at Target, but it's great to be able to show anything that you're doing to work, because working shows that you are able to balance priorities, that you're able to take on responsibility, and it's something that you're going to be able to speak to in your job experiences in your interviews. So definitely list all of your jobs. Don't think that like, oh, I was just a waitress. Like, okay, but what is waitressing, right? It's time management, it's people skills, it's customer service, it's dealing with difficult personalities, which is something that you'll totally do in a workplace. So don't undermine any of your experience, and make sure that you're laying out as much as you can to give talking points naturally for a conversation. Other than that, involvement. So I made a note on this because it's really important to be involved in school. There's so much set up for you where, you know, obviously you could join a million things, but I think it's better to join a few things and actually contribute than just say like, oh, I'm a member of every club that's out there. Yep, I'm a member of that. I show up to the meetings. But showing up and actually making an impact are two totally different things. So you don't have to be the president of the club, but volunteering to get involved in different things and actually contribute to a meeting or an event that they have, you'll get a lot more return in terms of the relationships that you'll build, but also the connections that you make professionally. So all of these clubs have great access to all the recruiters and professionals from the firms that they're most interested in. And when you're in a leadership role or, you know, a key player role in one of those clubs, you're constantly interacting with those professionals, and it helps your process because you're developing those relationships more than someone who just came, sat, right, like checked off, I went to the event, and then didn't really get anything out of it at the end. So definitely be active. And the last thing I would say is philanthropy. So when you think about a company that you want to join, you want to make sure that it's in line with your values. So if you're volunteering or you're passionate about something, I would definitely highlight that on your resume, because you want that to be in line with where you're going. So say you're really involved with the American Cancer Society, a great question that you would want to ask and have highlighted on your resume is your involvement, and then ask the firm, you know, what's your involvement with nonprofits? Like what do you guys do to give back? What's your social responsibility look like? So I'd say those are the key things that I'm looking for in a resume, but overall, I can't over emphasize enough. It's nice when it's clean and easy to find things.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for students to hear it from you in terms of how can they articulate skills and experience in a meaningful way and present those. As you said, that the information can be gleaned really quickly. So, yeah. Christine, do we have any questions?
We do. So today, right now, we're going to change it to the student question and answer session. So if you do have a question, please just put it into the chat and I'm going to give them to Aubrey. We had a few that were sent prior to this session, and I just would like to address those first.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you, Aubrey, because even talking about a resume, one of my pet peeves is when a student talks to me and they say, well, I just did this. I said, first off, just take that word out of your vocabulary. Take the word just out of your vocabulary, because there's value in that experience. And it's those questions to say, well, what skills did you learn in that experience? And then they start rattling them off and they're like, oh, I wasn't just a waitress. You know, I did all of these things. And I think that's really important when they're talking to recruiters and alums, to showcase all those skills that you've actually accomplished and all of the wonderful skills that you have to bring to somebody. It's just getting to articulate those, and those networking opportunities are so important for that as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize like no one was born an auditor, and like you didn't come into college. Like we don't expect you to like come into college in a suit and just be a fully formed human, right? Like you are a fully formed adult. Like there's a lot to go through. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen, and there's a lot of experiences, big and small, that are going to make that happen. So don't undermine those along the way. It's important to really like value those and make those a conversation point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the questions that we did get emailed was, do you foresee a decrease in the amount of internships you extend to students due to COVID?
So I think it will depend. I know that's kind of a tricky answer, but at least for this summer, we were able to keep all of our interns. We converted our internship from an in-person internship to a shortened virtual internship, mainly because, one, we can't be in person. It had to be virtual, but it's shortened because the type of work that students are going to be able to do virtually and actually get something out of it. It's just different than being in person. We're a very like mentor heavy environment where you're sitting with people going through their work face to face, and there's a lot of like client interaction. So because that can't happen, we definitely shifted things, but from the feedback that we've gotten from our interns, they're really excited about it, and it seemed like a really good solution. So we're happy about that. And everyone received automatic full-time job offers, which was great because if we can't judge you on your performance, we can't at the end be like, yeah, we'll give you an offer, or we won't for full-time. So everyone who got an internship was essentially interviewing for their full-time job, which is great. So for this summer, everything's really on a positive note so far. For next summer, it will depend on, I think, how the economy recovers and where things go. So it's going to be really dependent on that, because for audit and tax, our numbers stay pretty much the same. So audit and tax work is or at least audit work for the most part, is very regulated. So like the business is going to continue in the fashion that's going. Our clients are going to continue to need to be audited. Tax will depend when it comes to special projects and different divisions of tax. I would say advisory is the one that's going to fluctuate the most, because a lot of the projects that our consulting practices are doing come from like extra spend money that companies have. So they go in and they do these management consulting projects when they want to restructure or like improve something within their business. So people are not necessarily doing all of that work right this minute, but I think next summer is kind of far away. So we'll have a much better picture of it by the end of August. But I don't see it really affecting our recruiting here too much. I think the practices that would typically recruit will come, and there might be less in terms of quantity, but I think the same type of practices will be recruiting. Does that answer the question?
It does. And there was actually a follow-up question to that one. If a student is leaning towards advisory as compared to audit or tax, how can they better position themselves to get into that area?
Okay, I saw that. That one's from Brian, right?
Oh,
okay,
yep.
So are you an accounting student? Because I think that's one difference, right? So if you're an accounting student and you're leaning more towards advisory, that's awesome. I think for this fall, especially because we recruited a lot of audit and tax this spring and deal advisory, this fall you'll see more audit and tax, but then you'll see like more technology consulting, management consulting type roles. So having your CPA and being an accounting major is going to make you like a triple threat in anything that you go into within the firm. The more CPAs, the better for us. But I think in terms of positioning yourself, it's just thinking about like, why do you want to go into advisory, being able to speak to that. And then if you are an accounting major, which I'm not sure if you want to write it in the chat box, that'd be helpful. But if you are an accounting major, what is your double major or what is your minor? What are you specializing in? Because that will kind of help, I think, make your case for an advisory practice. If you're specializing in like a technology group or an engineering type major, I think those will kind of position you a little bit better than just like a pure accounting major who wants to do a different advisory practice. But if you're like a finance or economics or IT, like those are already very well positioned to go into advisory. So you can also email me and we can kind of talk about like, what you're thinking about positioning yourself under a 4-year business. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's great. I think you're well positioned to apply to advisory. The business information systems is really important for anything in advisory, honestly, anything within the firm right now, because of how much technology is a part of our everyday and the advancing technology that we're beginning to use with AI and data analytics. It's just a big part of what we're doing. So anyone who's coming in with kind of like a competitive advantage there is great. But definitely email me.
For your internship program, is a cover letter required?
No, a cover letter is not required. And my advice on cover letters is that if you have something worthwhile to say, then say it in a cover letter. But if you're doing it just to do it, don't do it. If you're just doing it to be like, this is my name and I am intending to apply for this job and here's my major, goodbye. Like I didn't learn anything about you that I didn't learn on your resume. So if you have something, maybe about your experience with the firm or why you would really just be the best fit for this practice because of your experience or because of your personal interest, that's what you want to put in a cover letter. But if a company requires it, I think it's important to just make sure that you're making it a standout. And short and sweet. Don't write an entire page. You couldn't possibly have that much to say on a job that you haven't done yet anyway. So I think keep it short if you have to do it, and say something unique that they're not going to read in everyone else's. I've read some really great cover letters when they have them, but I don't count it against people when they don't.
That makes a lot of sense. So we have another question. As someone who is studying journalism, what would be the best way to get involved with communications at an organization such as KPMG?
Yeah, so communications falls into what's called BPG. So I actually work in BPG, it's Business Processes Group. So that includes all of our HR, internal finance, internal marketing, anything that's basically not client facing. So those jobs are posted. They're not as common because we're a pretty lean organization internally. The bulk of our size comes from client facing roles. So in terms of communications, I would say you can look into the roles that kind of fall under that. But I also say that like, we're not the place for everyone. I wouldn't have wanted to start my career here as a communication major just because I learned so much in the jobs that I had before and then landed in campus recruiting kind of in a roundabout way. So I would say think about like what a company does and why you'd want to work there. So like for KPMG specifically, I tell people to think about like, what is this company really, really good at? And what are you interested in? So if you're really, really interested in journalism, I would go to a company that is like mainly focused on journalism, right? You might want to consider working for a media company or like a PR company or something that would immediately be able to utilize your skills. And that's the main thing that they do. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. But any job postings that they do have posted will be on Handshake if there are those types of jobs available. It's just not like the bread and butter of what we do.
So speaking of the jobs that are on Handshake, if there's a student who's a recent PhD graduate, would the positions be posted on Handshake for those students as well?
So when you graduate, there's kind of like a grace period of like 6 to 9 months that you're still considered like a university hire. PhD recruiting is actually a completely different, different subset of students. So we don't do PhD recruiting at Lehigh, but there are PhD recruiters for KPMG. Only specific practices target that, obviously, because most of the time we're looking for entry-level people, and PhDs are looking for obviously a higher level role or a higher level pay grade at least than an associate would be. So those jobs would be posted on kpmgcareers.com, anything that's looking for a PhD, just because we don't specifically recruit at Lehigh for PhD students.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then another question, is it common for students who are pursuing a language major to start in a domestic office, then move laterally to an international office?
I don't know if common is the right word, but having a special skill like that, so having a language skill, especially being a part of a global firm, we have a lot of global rotation opportunities. There is a lot of opportunity to travel. If you're interested in, there's also a lot of opportunity to stay where you are, if that's what you're into. But having a second language in an office or even with a client that we work with internationally is a huge benefit. So you would definitely start domestically. We would never hire you here and be like, okay, great, like go to Germany. But in terms of global rotation opportunities, it would put you at a great advantage to be able to raise your hand for that if it came up. So they're all group and project specific. Everything we do is kind of like engagement specific. So if a project came up and you were the right level and the right practice, like skill set to do it, and you had that language, that's definitely a benefit.
Okay. I just have one final question. You and I had a chance to talk a few months ago, and it was very interesting when you're talking about the Big Four and when students are offered a position and then they hold on to it for a while.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the ramifications and effects that has on other students? If that
Wait, what was the end of what you said? Ramifications?
Oh, like the ramifications, like if they hold on to that offer for a while, what that could do to other students' opportunities.
Yeah, so basically how the recruiting process works is we have recruiting budgets. So everyone has a budget of how many people they can hire, but they're typically not school specific. So at least for me, like if I'm giving out offers for New York for audit, for example, I will give the feedback of the people that we interviewed to the audit recruiting manager in New York. And we're kind of weighing the students against all the other schools that we're recruiting at. And then we decide, okay, based on everyone we recruited, we could give 2 offers to Lehigh students, right? Say 8 kids interviewed and we liked 4 of them. We're only giving it to those two top people. If they hold on to their offers throughout the entire process, those next 2 people that we did really like and would love to give offers to, they don't ever get considered because we essentially run out of time. So it's kind of like a race against time when it comes to the offer process. So if you interview for a job and you get an offer and you're not going to consider it, definitely decline it as soon as you possibly can, because as long as you feel like you have all the information you need and you're really confident about that, because you're giving an opportunity to another student to get a job offer. It's happened several times where students were just like, oh, I had until this date to decline, so I just waited, and then another student in their class didn't get an offer, even though they were, just a hair behind them in the process. So there are budgets, there are numbers of people that we can extend offers to, and it's also just a process. We have to do it in like order of operation. So I would definitely say know what you're looking for, and when you get your offers, be able to make a response, give your response in a timely manner, just so that we can get those offers to other students, or if you need more information, make sure that you say that as well, as fast as possible too, so that we can get you everything you need to make the best decision for you.
I appreciate that. When you and I were talking, I just thought that was pretty profound, that if you do hold on to that offer, essentially other Lehigh students are losing out on that. And then that decreases the Lehigh footprint going forward, which we always want to make.
It definitely does, because if you hold on to your offer, there are schools that are doing later recruiting. So not only did you decline your offer and the Lehigh student missed out on it, but now someone from Penn State's getting that offer.
Right.
And we want to make Lehigh the biggest and the best, so we can't let that happen.
Exactly. We had one more question come in from a student that I just want to squeeze in, and then we'll wrap up. Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. So the question was about, you can only apply for like one role, but could you apply in multiple locations? So each role is actually location specific. So on the Handshake posting, it will say advisory, New York City, like deal advisory, New York City, internship 2020. It won't say deal advisory internship, and then it's like a drop down of different cities. Certain geographies only hire certain roles. So you can apply to one job period. And again, that's how our process is this fall. Things are always changing. That's how it's been for us. I do foresee it being different in the future, but for right now, that is the process. And it's just so that, you don't put your eggs in so many baskets. And then again, students, you're getting selected for a job that you didn't really want. And you applied to 3 and you wanted the 3rd one. So you do have to pick one job, and it is location specific for your application. And how are full-time hires placed geographically? Full-time hires are placed in the same location that you intern in. So if you intern in New Jersey, your full-time offer is in New Jersey.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we got all the questions. Thank you so much for giving us these industry insights. And
thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Knowledge. It was a lot of fun. So just thank you. And thank you to all the students for joining us today. This will actually be on our Higher Lehigh YouTube channel if anybody wants to come back to it and view it. But we just appreciate Aubrey joining us, because really having this information is vital to our students.
Thanks, guys. It's good to see so many friendly names, not faces, here on the board, but I hope to see you guys back this fall. I'll post my email address here in the chat box. If anyone needs anything, feel free to reach out to me. We're all just chilling this summer, getting ready for our virtual fall season. So let me know how I can help.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. It's been so great to have you. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all our students. Definitely reach out to Aubrey. That would be wonderful. Get some more information. Take care.
Thanks, guys.